G'day! Today we're doing a bit of work on a 2011 Hyundai i30 1.6 litre, and the problem is it's going into limp mode constantly. So we've got one fault on the engine and 3 on the transmission. And we've got the torque converter clutch solenoid, shift control solenoid C, and the solenoid D. So these have a dipstick, so we'll just suck the oil out through here. That just makes the job a little bit less messy underneath. These have the A4CF2 transmissions in it. We'll just take off this stone guard first. Now you can see this one's been worked on before. So we'll just whiz off these pan bolts, and hopefully that elastic hasn't cured to get that pan stuck on there. If it has, you have to carefully scrape it away, and I'd say carefully so you don't bend the pan rail, otherwise then it's difficult to reseal. And of course we put a gasket on these. Now make sure you can get your scraper in as level as you can. If you can't, then you'll end up gouging the pan rail or bending the pan. Yeah, it's gone through easily. That's loosened it up. There you go. Just wiggle it a bit. That's it. So there is a fair bit of fine metal in the pan. Apparently the dealership replaced the valve body with a second-hand one and just got other fault codes. But the problem is with these particular transmissions are these earth straps. What happens that you can see that little flat strap there. There's one on top and there's one down here. And what happens there, those little plastic flat bits, they become hard and brittle. So if the dealership took that valve body out, there is a chance that they cracked those little wire connections there. And there's another one similar on top there. So we'll just whiz off that valve body and check the solenoids as well that are on the top there. And here we have the top side of the valve body. You can see that all the valve body bolts that hold the valve body on to the case are all around the outside. So you leave all the middle ones there. And just for reference, there's like a block of 5 solenoids on the top. And we've got the variable force or the pressure control solenoid, which is visible from the bottom there. So it's easier to see here, but you can see that plug from the pressure control solenoid. That plugs into here, and then you can remove that other plug off there. There's one that goes to the external part of the valve body, and there's one that goes to the internal part. And our fault codes are this one, 2/4 clutch, that one, underdrive clutch, and the torque converter solenoid. So those 3 there. So chances are there's a crack somewhere in that little strap there. Now we need to take this nut off on the selector, make sure you support this. You don't just try and undo it. You've got to support this with a shifter or something similar while you undo this. 14mm, otherwise you'll probably end up bending something in there. Now I've got my little tool. You can find how I make this tool in a different video, A1P V-dub. What we do, we just slide that in over that plug and then we just press it. You got to sort of wiggle it down like so, and there we go. Plug comes out, you don't end up breaking anything. Minimal movement of that harness strap as well. Now we're going to take this clip off. You press that little tang here and you get a screwdriver and just, you might have to just go evenly on both sides. If you just pull one side off, it'll get cocked to one side and it just locks up, but if you do it evenly on both, and there we go. So when you're taking these bolts out, it's a good idea to always measure the length. If you put the wrong bolt in the wrong hole, sometimes you can damage the casing. So you always measure them as you're taking them off. And we're just going to take all those bolts out right around the outside. You'll notice those accumulators. At this point, it's important to not mix up your accumulator piston springs, and you can also do an air pressure test on the clutch packs there over here, and you can see where that strap is right up there. It's in two parts, goes to there and then there's that other part. So we've got all the accumulators there. Now I don't like thinking if I don't have to, so what I do is I mark them. Start off here, the odd one can be number 1, and going around in a clockwise manner, 2, 3, 4. The middle one there, number 3, you'll notice there's also a spring on the inside there, so I'm just going to make a mental note of that. And these ones don't, so I just need to remember that that one's in there. I didn't mark that one. Now you can see the solenoid block on top there, and you can see that little harness that I was telling you about. It has that very delicate plastic, the wiring inside it. Very easy to damage the wiring in that, and quite often when it's in the car for a while, these will go hard and become brittle. So because this transmission's been worked on and they weren't able to fix it, like I said, apparently the customer said that they apparently replaced the whole valve body with another second-hand one and got similar sort of issues. But I believe that these straps are probably damaged, as well as you can see the solenoids are all contaminated, all covered in that fine metallic swarf there. So in this instance, we're not going to flush the solenoids or test them, we're just going to replace the whole valve body basically. And here we have a brand spanking new valve body. You want to always compare as many things as you can to make sure it's the same. And we've also got brand new harness connectors as well, and we'll just put all that back in. And when you're getting these off, you've got to pull them off evenly, because that strap won't allow you to pull one off completely. You've got to take them all off. Now, while that's in the car, It's a little bit hard to show you, but there's a little tang in there that you can press it down, and then that will slide off like that. You can see the little tang there. So we're actually pushing that down because that little bump locks into that slot. So if you pull it down towards the ground with a screwdriver, you can end up pulling that plug off. Here we are on the ATSG manual, and you can see all the pressure ports on the front side of the transmission there, and what they should be. Facing the bottom side of the transmission, what all the respective solenoids are. The one on the bottom is a pressure control solenoid. If you're doing an air pressure test, they're all the little locations of the pressure ports on the case once you've got the valve body out. And it also shows the accumulators, which ones do what. In case you muck up the lengths of the bolts on the valve body, there they are, 70mm, 55 and 60mm. Now we have the solenoid application chart. Basically all the valve body bolts are torqued up to 11 Newton metre or 100 inch-pound. Important not to over tighten them, or you can restrict the movement of the valve. And the location of all the clutch packs there, and you've got the clutch application chart there. OWC one-way clutch or sprag clutch, and the rest is underdrive clutch, overdrive clutch, reverse, coast, 2 for brake, and low reverse brake. Always good idea to whiz off the speed sensors. The input and the output speed sensors are external there on the transmission. 10mm bolt, you whiz them out and just give them a clean. They will get contaminated. Good idea to give them a clean, they're easy to get to. And there's your output one. Now we're going to replace this strap here. We pull the plug off at the front part of the transmission and push it back into the case. There will be a little O-ring there, and we'll leave that strap down like that. Before you put the valve body on, make sure all these O-rings are there as well, and that they're in place. Sometimes they do fall out, and ideally if they're flattened out or hardened, you'd replace them as well. Now there's the case connector loom, the one that goes from the case to the solenoids, and that plug. Important to double check everything before you open it, because a lot of this electronic stuff, you can't return it once it's open. That's that one. And the other one's the solenoid connector, or solenoid loom. Just whiz off these 2 bolts. That gives you a little bit more access, and you'll see the plug just down there. You just push with your thumb and it just slides out like that. That little grey bit there, that's what you have to push down to be able to release that plug. And now it's a little bit hard to see right down there, but need to give it a bit of a blowout. Now it's really hard to see, but once you've blown it out, you'll see that there's like a C-clip that just pushes into a slot on the top of that plug. You need to get a screwdriver and just work it out, because that's what locks it up. So when you're pushing your plug on, it doesn't go down. But you can see there's not much room there. I've got to sort of maneuver my hands through those cables and that to get to it. But you'll see when you're having a crack at it, you'll see there's like 2 little ends that are sticking out. You just need to push them off with a screwdriver. Good idea if you've got a magnetic telescopic magnet to just have that sitting near there. Otherwise sometimes it can pop out and disappear, and you definitely need that. to get it to hold that plug in. So I've just worked it off with a screwdriver. And there's that clip I was telling you, the C-clip. That just holds the plug in place. And now that that plug, you'll be able to just pull it, either pull it down or push it through. You might have to twist it a little bit because the rubber sort of gets it stuck in one spot. Just with the end of the screwdriver, you can just give it a gentle tap. There we go. That's through. And there it is. There's that loom. And you'll also notice on there, there's a little resistor. That's the temperature, the oil temperature sensor. Good idea to do a quick comparison of the plug. We've got the new one there. And they also have this little tang there, so you can't sort of put it in the wrong way. You just want to make sure you line that up. Always check for the O-ring. A little bit of oil on there will make it go in better. And also, because the tension of the rubber will be trying to push that plug out, and we've got to get that C-clip in that groove there. Good idea to get your assistant just to keep the tension on that plug, pushing it in while you push that C-clip in. Be a bit easier. C-clip's in. It took a couple of goes because the C-clip went in on one side and it was above the groove on the other side, so you've just got to confirm that. And it's also a good idea to just slightly rotate that C-clip while it's in like that. So we've got the second brake. That's nice. We've got the overdrive clutch, which I think is this one. Might be that one. We have the second brake. What else have we got? Over the other side, we've got these ones here. One of them, I probably need a rubber plug on that one. But one's the one-way clutch and the rear one's the low and reverse clutch. Beautiful. So they're not leaking. On that diagram that I showed earlier, you can see which accumulators are for what. You got your reverse accumulator, second accumulator, overdrive accumulator and underdrive accumulator. And just make sure you don't lose those O-rings, or ideally replace them. These are nice and pliable, so we're not going to replace them. And that one there. Just line them all up because you don't want to bend this strap there. And also a good idea to use the genuine stuff. That's in. And you'll feel a little click when they go in. I can flip it over carefully. And now if you remember back from that little clip there, that just slides in onto there. And that'll just click in like that. That other plug, forgot to put the pressure control one in. Okay. I like that, that's a bit of tension on that. And then the other plug just plugs into that. Alright, so we'll line up the accumulators. all numbered order. Number 2, number 3, number 4, and I'll hold it up in place, and my trusty assistant will put a couple of bolts in for me. Going in. Sitting on it. Yep, that's it. And you want to also double check that those O-rings are in there. I keep saying the same thing, but it is critical. And just one of these over here. Do. The selector, you'll find there's a little pin on there. That's there. That pin goes into that slot in the valve body, so it can't roll around. But you can adjust that up on your own. Now, quite often you'll see there'll be bolts that are very similar in length, but they're not. It's quite critical to not have them in the wrong spot, because you can break housings and things like that. So what you do is you get a screwdriver and just do a depth test. You can see that one, and that one goes in a little bit deeper. So that tells me out of those two bolts, the shorter one goes in here. And also what you can do is confirm that longer bolt. Yeah, we've got 5 mil to spare there, so definitely the longer one can go in here, and the shorter one is that length, is about 5 mil too. So if we mix them up, that one would bottom out, and if you kept tightening it, you could do damage. We tighten those bolts up to, the book says 10 to 12 Newton metre, we will go 12 Newton metre. So now we've got that little linkage, like that. And now what we need to do, support that linkage like that when you're tightening it. So you don't want to bend that at all. There we go. That's ready to rock and roll. Put the plug back in. Now we've got the filter to put back on. We're going to put neodymium magnets in it instead of the factory ones. They're a lot stronger, and they go on the filter, on the bottom of the filter. Hands all nice and clean, and you always, per usual, check that there's an O-ring there. Without that O-ring, you're going to be in trouble. Quite often on these, the magnets sit flat either on the pan, and sometimes people even put them on these spots there on the filter. We like to leave them up on these little ridges just so you get more of the magnet exposed to try and collect all that metallic swarf. When you're doing that, just make sure before you put it on that the magnets aren't near the solenoids or hitting up against something before you tighten up the pan. A little bit of oil on the O-ring, just work it on like that. So you can see there's plenty of room here at the back of the transmission, and also in this area here. You don't want to put it too close to that linkage, probably over here somewhere. over this end you've got all your solenoids and wiring, so you don't want to have anything in here. You probably could put it over here as well, magnet, but it's a good idea to test it before you put it on. Cork rubber gasket, just make sure you put them on dry cork rubber or it will weep through the cork sometimes, but if you put them on dry you're pretty right. And also make sure that these holes on the pan are flat. If they're pointing up, as you tighten it, it actually cuts the gasket, so you want to make sure they're flat as well. Double check your work. I've torqued up all the valve body bolts twice. We've got all the plugs in. We've tightened up the linkage and made sure it's aligned in the proper spot. I haven't put the plug in at the top yet. Squirt of WD-40 in the plug there, or equivalent. And we're putting probably about 4.5 litres of the full synthetic multi. We're using the Tritec. We either use the Tritec or Penrite. That electrical plug, you just want to make sure that it clicks when you push it in, just so the plug can't come out. And we've got some oil in there and I'm just going to briefly start it. In park, glow plugs a couple of times. And we've got an engine light's just come on. Might have to clear that code again. And now we start it. See what happens. There we go. No fault codes. Or no light on the dash anyway. So we'll just take it for a run now. Warm it up. Check that oil level hot. We're at operating temperature with the motor running. Anyway, hope that's helped. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions or comments, leave them in the section below. And throw us a beer if any of this information has helped. Thank you for watching.